You press enter. Not dramatically, not with ceremony. Your finger is dry, cracked at the knuckle, the nail bitten down to the quick. The keyboard is cheap, the keys slightly sticky from last night's instant noodles. You press enter the same way you always do, soft and flat. The keystroke of someone who is very, very tired. 3 seconds later, the Russian central bank loses $47 million. You don't feel anything. That is what surprises people when they imagine this moment. They expect adrenaline, a heartbeat spiking into the red. But you just sit back in your chair, and the chair creaks, and you stare at the terminal window, and you watch a string of confirmation texts scroll past in green on black. 47 million. Gone. Rerouted through a chain of shell wallets so deep and so tangled that by the time any analyst starts pulling the thread, it will have dissolved into vapor. This is your life in every rank of the Russian hacker mafia. And right now, staring at that green text in the dark, you have total control. Or you think you do. That is the lie this world tells you, that the screen is the whole world, that as long as the cursor blinks, you are untouchable. It did not start like this. It started in a room that smelled like mildew and old cigarette smoke in a 12-story Soviet-era block in the outer districts of Moscow, where the heating worked for approximately 4 months of the year, and the radiators knocked all night like something trying to get out. You were 19. Your setup was a second-hand tower machine with a processor 3 generations behind, a pirated copy of Windows, and a 16-inch monitor whose left edge had developed a persistent yellow bloom. You found your first forum using a public library computer and a VPN. You configured yourself from a tutorial posted in broken English by someone in Belarus. You were what they called a script kiddie. You used other people's tools. You ran pre-written phishing kits against low-value targets, email templates disguised as bank notifications from institutions that nobody had audited in a decade. You made, in your best month, the equivalent of $300. You spent most of it on ramen, energy drinks, and a better graphics card. The daily rhythm was this. You woke around 1400 hours when the weak winter light was already starting to die. You drank instant coffee so strong it left a residue in your teeth. You sat down at the machine. You worked until your eyes felt like gravel. You did not go outside, not because you were afraid, but because outside felt like a completely different world. A world that had nothing to do with the one that lived inside the screen. Your social contact was forums, encrypted chat channels, and occasionally a voice call with a man 3 time zones east who you knew only as Volk, Wolf in English. He had been doing this for 11 years. He typed in short, precise sentences and never wasted a single word. He was the one who told you that script kiddies do not survive. They get caught or they get used. He told you that if you wanted to last, you needed to stop borrowing tools and start building them. You listened. Rising through the ranks of a syndicate like this one is not a promotion. There is no handshake, no ceremony, no official title. It is more like a slow absorption. You prove you can build. You prove your code is clean. You prove you do not panic. And quietly, without announcement, the quality of the work you are offered begins to change. By 22, you are writing your own payloads. By 23, you have handled your first coordinated campaign, targeting a mid-sized logistics firm in Germany. The breach was surgical, a credential stuffing attack against their remote access portal, cycling through a list of 40,000 username password pairs harvested from an older, unrelated leak. Their IT team had never enforced unique passwords across platforms. They were using the same credentials from a social media breach that happened 4 years earlier and had never been rotated. You were inside within 6 hours. You moved through their internal network slowly, staying under the detection threshold of their behavioral analytics, elevating privileges by degrees, mapping the architecture before touching anything. It was the patience that separated you from the script kiddies now. You understood that the ones who got caught were always the ones who moved too fast, who got greedy, who triggered an alert, and then panicked. The syndicate noticed. The message came through a channel you had never used before, on an encrypted platform that required a handshake protocol you had to solve before the interface even loaded. The sender had no name, just a handle composed of a string of characters that meant nothing. The message was 11 words. We have an assignment. The fee is significant. Do you want it? You did not respond immediately. That was the first rule Folk had taught you. Never be eager. Eagerness is a vulnerability. You responded 18 hours later with a single character. Yes, the target came through in fragments, each piece delivered separately and encrypted with a different key. You reconstructed it like a mosaic. A major Western financial clearinghouse, not a bank. The infrastructure behind the banks. The system that processed interbank settlements across a corridor of 11 countries. The kind of institution whose name most people have never heard because it exists below the surface of the financial system they interact with every day. Your objective was not theft, not directly. Your objective was access, persistent, invisible, undetected access. You were to plant a dormant implant deep in their network, something that could sit motionless for months, waiting. What it would be activated to do later, they did not tell you. That was not your concern. Your concern was the entry. You spent 3 weeks on reconnaissance alone, passive intelligence gathering. You mapped their public-facing infrastructure, identified vendors they used through job postings and conference presentations, and the digital exhaust that any large organization generates without realizing it. You found a third-party software supplier with a trusted integration into the clearinghouse network. A smaller company, fewer than 90 employees, with a security posture that had not been meaningfully updated in 4 years. The attack on the supplier was the key. A spear phishing campaign built around a fabricated identity. A person who did not exist but whose profile, email signature, professional history, and writing style you had assembled with meticulous care over 10 days. The target inside the supplier was a senior developer with access to the integration pipeline. The email was about a code review request. It contained a document. The document contained a macro. He opened it on a Tuesday morning. From there, it was architecture. You moved through the supplier's network, located the integration credentials, used them to authenticate into the clearinghouse's internal development environment, and from there navigated laterally for 9 days before you found the right system, the right depth, the right place to leave something that looked like nothing. The implant was custom built. No signature in any commercial detection database. It communicated outbound on a protocol that blended into the noise of normal encrypted traffic, randomizing its intervals, hibernating during anomaly detection audit windows. When it was done, you sent a single confirmation to the nameless handler. Planted. The fee arrived in 3 separate cryptocurrency transactions across 2 wallets you had never used before and would never use again. When you converted the total value, it came to approximately $1,800,000. You did not celebrate. You ran a full security audit on your own systems. You checked your network logs line by line. You shredded your operational notes. You sat in the dark of your apartment, which was now considerably nicer than the mildew room in Moscow, a private flat in a city whose name you would not have given to anyone. And you drank water, and you stared at the ceiling, and you thought about everything you might have missed. You thought you had missed nothing. The metadata problem was not in the code. The code was perfect. You had gone over it hundreds of times. Every signature scrubbed, every artifact removed, every timestamp falsified. The implant was invisible. The entry route was cold. On a technical level, the operation was as clean as anything you had ever done. The problem was a document. 11 weeks after the operation, you receive a message from Folk. It is the first time he has reached out in 4 months, and it is not a question or a conversation. It is 2 sentences. They found a thread. It is not nothing. You do not sleep that night. You go back through everything. Every file you created during the planning phase, every tool you compiled, every note you wrote, every piece of infrastructure you touched, and then you find it. A single document. A planning note you had created in the early research phase, before the operation even had a confirmed target. When you were still doing preliminary reconnaissance, you had created it on a machine that was supposed to be clean. But the document had been created using a piece of software that had not been fully sanitized, and embedded in the file metadata, invisible to any normal reader but perfectly legible to a forensic analyst, was a time zone identifier. Not a name, not an address, not anything that directly identified you. Just a time zone. 1 of 4 in the geographic region where you were living. That was enough. You understand immediately what has happened because you have done this exact type of analysis yourself. From the other direction, tracking people by the digital exhaust they did not know they were generating. A time zone combined with the operational timing of the implant's communication patterns. Combined with stylistic patterns in the code that a skilled reverse engineer might correlate against older, attributed samples. Combined with transaction timing on wallets that were supposed to be unconnected. No single piece was proof. Together they were a direction, and a direction was enough to start moving people. The paranoia changes texture after that. Before, it had been ambient. A background hum you had learned to live with the way you had learned to live with the screen glare and the bad posture and the 4-hour sleep cycles. After, it becomes something physical. You start noticing the street outside your window differently. A car that parks in the same spot 2 days in a row. A delivery man who takes slightly too long to check his list. You move your workstation away from the window. You start varying your schedule. You set up proximity alerts on every entrance point of the building. You know how this works. You have watched it work on other people. The investigation does not announce itself. It builds in silence, patiently, below the threshold of visibility. Exactly the way you built the implant. And when it is ready, it does not send a warning. You message the nameless handler. No response, you message Folk. He responds in 6 words. Do not stay where you are. You begin to understand that the $1,800,000 sitting across your wallets is useful for many things. For a flight, you have to book in the next 2 hours using a name that is not yours. For a hotel that takes cash. For a new machine, you have to build from scratch in a room you have never been in before. For survival, it might not be enough. The door does not break down dramatically. That is the other lie the screen tells you. You imagine it in every possible way during the weeks of anxiety. A tactical team, shouting, stun grenades, the cinematic version. What happens instead is quieter than that and more final. It is 4 in the morning. You have been awake for 31 hours. The new machine is half built on a table in a room that smells like industrial cleaner. You have a burner phone with 1 contact loaded into it. The window faces an alley. You made sure of that. 1 exit you can see from the desk. The light in the alley turns on. A motion sensor. You have been watching this light for 3 days and it has never activated at 4 in the morning. Because there is nothing in that alley at 4 in the morning. You are already moving before you have consciously decided to move. The money cannot move with you. It is in wallets tied to infrastructure you can no longer safely access from a running position. The hardware stays. The machine stays. Everything you built over the last 11 years. Every technique, every contact, every piece of infrastructure, every operational memory stored on machines you will never see again. You walk out with a phone, a jacket, and a passport that belongs to a name that has not been used in 14 months. In the digital world, you had total control. You moved money across borders invisibly. You penetrated systems built by teams of hundreds. You operated above governments and below their radar simultaneously. You were, for all practical purposes, ungovernable. On this street at 4 in the morning, in the cold, With footsteps behind you that may or may not be getting closer, you are just a person running. The screen was never the whole world. It was a window. And windows work in both directions. You just forgot to check which way they were looking.